The city of McLendon Chisholm has just approved a budget that has some local organizers, community organizers, ready to put together a petition drive to put a tax rollback on next May's ballot. But I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. Not yet, at least. It's time for some straight talk. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Yes, no doubt, if you have taken a look at the budget that was passed by the McLendon Chisholm City Council, you were no doubt scratching your head if you took a good look at it, especially because it really doesn't make a lot of sense why the budget is also including a tax rate increase on citizens. But that's exactly what's happening, and I want to give you a chance to understand why I think this occurred. And I really believe that it has everything to do with the presentation that the city administrator gave to the city council. I believe that the city council was misled in the presentation that was given by the city administrator, and it is really it is so dishonest. What was put in it, and it is so important that citizens see for themselves why it is I'm giving some members of the city council the benefit of the doubt. And so you can understand what I mean by that. I think it's important to understand that a city budget in the state of Texas has to be approved by September 30th. And on July 13th, which is 13 days in advance of the 10 days required, the city posted notice about a public hearing on the budget. On July 31st, which is 10 days in advance, the city posted notice about public hearing on the tax rate increase. Then on August 10th, the city held the state required public hearing. Now understand, there used to be, until this is the first year where the state legislature has changed this rule. It used to be a city had to have two public hearings. It slowed the process down. But for whatever reason, the state legislature said only one is enough. And as we know anything about, if we know anything about the city of McLendon Chisholm, one thing we can say is they do the very bare minimum required of them. And so this is the same night, the night they held the public hearing is actually the same night that the city administrator's presentation on the budget took place. Copies of it were not made available to the public, nor has it been posted on the city website. In fact, the reason you're able to see the presentation is because I did a open records request, and they had to give it to me. But you will not find this presentation on the city website. And then so that was August 10th. On August 16th, they held a special meeting to approve the 2021-22 budget. That is 19. It took 19 days from the time that they gave notice to passage. And I understand, never in the history of the city of McLendon Chisholm has a budget been passed so fast. And there are reasons for it, I believe. And I just so full disclosure, I have had conversations with two members of the city council, and I agreed to keep their identities to myself. And both of the conversations, well, one was a conversation, one was an email exchange, were very respectful. And just I want to make sure that you understand. I think it's okay that people disagree. I don't think there should be any problem with that. I realize that people do. If you disagree with them, then you should be demonized and vilified. But you should be able to have disagreements from time to time. And the discussion helped me greatly better understand where the city council was coming from. And from that, I kind of took away that I think it is my belief that the city council was rushed through this process. One of the members that I spoke to said that they felt rushed, that they had very little time. They were hoping there would be more public hearings. But as you know, the mayor runs this city. He is the quote unquote CEO, and he demanded that they rush through this process. As few people to talk about it as possible was what they wanted, and that is exactly what they got. And so, so this is part of the issue, that this was ramrodded through, very similar to other things that have been ramrodded through in the past. But I'm not going to go into that. I want to focus on this budget. Now, part of the city administrator's presentation included different grandiose statements, and I'm going to show you this slide because it's indicative of everything else in this presentation. But what she writes is, items in this budget are aligned to both solve current gaps and provide for future requirements. Look for gaps and requirements in this presentation, folks, or in this budget. And that's what I'm going to show you now. This is what you need to be keeping an eye on. Where are the gaps and where are the future requirements? It sounds important to me. Now, just so you know, and I want to make sure that you are not just listening to me and believing what I have to say. My family, on my mother's side of the family is from Missouri, and my grandmother, she epitomized the motto of the state, show me. It's the show me state, and she always said, don't tell me what you're going to do, show me. Don't tell me, show me. And so I think it's important that you have a copy of the budget that I'm going to show you, and you can look on this page that is broadcasting this, and at the bottom there is a link to the city website where this budget is. Now, if you think I'm giving you a bad link or something like that, you can go to the city website, and right there on the front page, at least for now, is where you will find that the budget that I'm going to show, and you will see for yourself that what I'm saying is absolutely accurate. You know, the thing that you need to understand. So this is and I'll get, hopefully you'll, if you have or need of going to get that, just pause this video, go get it so that you have a chance to kind of review what I'm showing you, so you can see for yourself. But what you're seeing, and I'm going to be looking at the combined revenue and expense summary. But one of the things that's important to understand is that best practices from the Texas Municipal League is that a city should have at least 6 months of revenue in case of an emergency or an unforeseen drop in economic conditions. Now, not all cities can do that. Some cities have a year's worth of float, of savings, I guess. You should start getting concerned when you start seeing cities just storing and hoarding money, which is basically what we're seeing here, because this is from the combined revenue and expense page, which is the third page of the approved budget. And understand the fiscal year begins October 1st. Now, if you see here the total funds column, it includes, excuse me, the column utility fund column right there. And the problem with this being included in the overall total is that it has nothing to do with the overall budget. And the reason why is the utility fund is specific to the PID, those people who live in Sonoma Verde. That utility fund is something I used to refer to as the maintenance fund, but it's basically those of people who live in Sonoma Verde. They pay two parts of the PID. The first is on their lot, and that I think is a 20-year payout. Excuse me. And some homeowners, and they pay that off until it's gone, and some homeowners have actually just paid that lot cost off. The other part goes with the home regardless. So if you sell your home and you've sold off and you paid off that lot part of the PID, the new owner doesn't have to pay a new lot fee. That's been taken care of. But the maintenance fund, or the utility fund part of the PID, that is where the people in Sonoma Verde, if their streets need repair or maintenance, if the sewer system, if any of the infrastructure within their phase of development needs to be repaired or replaced, well, that's where the money comes from. And if there's not enough money in that utility fund, then the city will pay the difference, and then those homeowners within that phase of development where the repair occurred will then receive an increase in their tax notice on that portion, and they will that next tax season pay back the city what they had to pay. So that's why when you look at this column, it really is misleading, because the 3.56 million that you see there is misleading because it includes funds from the PID itemized in the utility fund column. So for clarity's sake, I'm going to take out the utility fund column and create a more accurate picture that we actually begin the fiscal year with a surplus of $3 million. Now recall the best practice of at least 6 months reserve. Well, the city of McLendon Chisholm will begin the 2021-22 fiscal year with a 16-month fund balance in reserve. Keep that in mind as we continue. The total expenditures or cost to run the city is $2.24 million. The city council budgets a revenue of $2.7 million, which is typically intended to cover expenses. So when we subtract the total expenses from the projected revenue, we get a surplus of $463,291, which is reflected in the net change in fund balance when we take out the utility fund, as I have been doing and I'm going to do throughout this presentation. This means that we end the fiscal year with a surplus of almost $3.5 million. McLendon Chisholm is budgeting to end the fiscal year with almost 19 months surplus. Now, when you flip back one page to the second page of the approved budget, we see that the $463,000 surplus, of that, $387,000 of it will come from property taxes, because council voted unanimously to increase our property tax rate from 15 cents to 18.5 cents. So when we subtract the $89,327 of taxes from the new property owners that are added to the tax roll, the existing taxpayers are being forced to fund an additional $298,489 in new taxes, which is not printed on that page. You simply have to do the math. So why impose a tax rate increase on property owners? After all, if you live in McLendon Chisholm, your property taxes go up because the value of your home increases already. But the reason why this kind of thing happens is the same reason why I have, when I was mayor and when I was on city council and when I was mayor, I had this quote by William Pitt on my desk. And that quote is, "Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves." So how do you drive people to accept the necessity argument when there is clearly no necessity at all? Well, it's a very simple thing. You create a gloom and doom perception of the situation, you create a crisis. And the city administrator's presentation does a very good job of misleading and deceiving. There are so many half-truths in this presentation, it defies logic. But unless you have a big government mindset, unless you believe that government is the solution to all the problems, which I don't, and nor did Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan said, "I believe government isn't the solution to our problems. I believe government is the problem." In fact, government creates nothing. Are there needs in our community? Yes. Here is, the administrator says that MC is too dependent on building permit revenue. Building permit revenue is subject to economic condition. Now here you see the projected fiscal year revenue for 2020-21, where the building permits accounted for 34% of the city's revenue. what the city administrator wanted the city council to do was to increase taxes on citizens to help decrease the dependence on building permit revenue. Now, here is the basis of that argument. Now, this slide presents single-family building permits, and most frustrating of all about this portion of the presentation is the fact that instead of basing the numbers on fiscal year, it's based on calendar year, which does nothing to bring clarity, only confusion. But remember, this is government. And the one thing that government bureaucrats love to do is create confusion. The one thing they do not want to ever see is for citizens to have clarity about what's actually going on, because that's when citizens revolt. So here's a city administrator's commentary to this convoluted graph. Sonoma Verde is the only active subdivision issuing building permits other than single lots in other areas of McLendon Chisholm. There is a limited supply of available lots in Sonoma Verde, and the new lots in the next 3 phases of Sonoma Verde are not yet ready for builders. Now, watch this. In June, 27 new lots were available in phase 2. Note here that no mention is made of existing inventory lots. That's not a mistake, because it's the job of a bureaucrat to make things appear as desperate as possible when you're trying to create a gloom and doom scenario. However, it's important to remember that the $808,000 there that's projected to come in is exactly what was budgeted for this current fiscal year. You can go look at it. If you've got that budget in your hand, you should look and see that what I'm saying is true. So the question mark that's highlighted there should have been filled in with a number over 100 as an estimate, but to do so would have lessened the ominous effect that was intended. Continuing to one of my favorite parts of this slide, you see that 185 lots will be available soon in phases 4A and B, but watch this, not before the end of the current fiscal year. Now, remember, the new fiscal year is October 1st. We're still in the fiscal year. It's about to be over, but create that gloom and doom, right? But isn't it interesting here that the time frame used to present this data, when she's saying it, presenting it, is calendar year, but here is a reference to the fiscal year. Confused yet? That's the idea. There's 43 lots in phase 4C that's expected in February, which is part of the next fiscal year. So before the end of the next fiscal year, there will be 255 lots available in Sonoma Verde, in one of the hottest housing markets in history. So, but we can't talk about how hot the housing market is. We've got to create a gloom and doom scenario. What about phases 3 and 5, which are not expected until 2023? Well, I had to do an open records request for that information because apparently that was not important enough to include in this presentation. And here's why. There are 169 lots in phase 3 and 79 lots in phase 5. So between now and 2023, 503 lots will be available in one of the hottest housing markets in Texas. So, what I want to point out one truth here is that it is true that that a big part of the revenue that's coming in to the city is coming from these new houses that are being built, and that could be problematic if you continue to expand and grow government. It's not a problem if you live within your means. The city administrator creates the gloom and doom scenario. So let's just go along with the idea that the income of the city is drying up and our city's future looks desperate. Now, I ask you, what should a city do in that situation? You know, if you lost your primary source of income, and if that were really true, what would you do? Now, typically, if that can be a crisis for many families, and what do? You cut back. You sell your house. Here's how the council is handling this supposed crisis. One of the things that they are doing is they are adding full-time staff. And one of those full-time staff members is going to be a full-time code enforcement officer. And this is one of the slides. And on this slide, it's placed here to separate the real cost of this new position, which isn't $16,000. It's $16,000 more than the officer is currently paid as a part-time employee. Now, one of the things that one of the council members that I spoke with said to me, and I didn't find the reasoning to be unreasonable, but their point was, look, we're only talking about another $15,000 or $16,000, and the point was made that this position is going to be doing other things. And I want to begin by saying, I get it would be nice to, I guess, have a full-time code enforcement officer. My question is it really necessary? And if they're doing other job duties, shouldn't that be delineated out so we, the citizens, can see the value that we're getting? I think so. Here's the next slide. And we see the operating budget for this new full-time position. Now what we're showing is $48,000 increase to the budget. And that's significant. However, it hides the full picture. Now, to get the full picture, we need to go back to the approved budget. Initially, the city budgeted roughly $33,500 for a part-time position. When I was mayor, I hired the fire chief, Chief Simmons. And one of the things about Chief Simmons that we liked was that he's a peace officer. He's a licensed peace officer. And since our city administrator was about to retire, our city administrator was a licensed peace officer as well, and he served as our code enforcement officer. So when we hired the fire chief, he agreed to be the code enforcement officer, and in fact, the fire chief went and got certified as a code enforcement officer. As the fire department was expanded, as we got new employees to the fire department, firemen, they would be also certified as code enforcement officers. This would reduce the cost, and we wouldn't have to be dependent on an individual to do that. But here is what we're seeing. So the fire chief was hired to do that, but the amended budget shows that $30,000 was actually spent. So the proposed budget makes this position full-time for a total cost of $86,704. Now, that's not a $48,000 increase. That's a $56,740 increase to the budget. Plus, we have the added burden of another permanent employee. So, while I said before, and I'll say again, it's not necessarily bad to have a full-time code enforcement officer, but is this really necessary, especially when the city is trying to create the perception that we are in crisis mode? I would say no, and especially now. This is a city with a population of 3,000 people. We are not Rockwall. We are not Fate, Royce City, or any of our surrounding cities. We are a fraction of the size, but our city government wants to be as big or better than all of the rest. That's the wrong mindset. What's the one position that our city just cannot live without? Now, I want you to ask yourself that. What is it that the city needs more than anything that is a true necessity? Now, if you didn't say a city planner, you're not alone. But if you're confused as to why a city of 3,000 people that wants to protect our wide open spaces, as most I've talked to seem to be, it should be obvious if you're paying attention. The mayor and some members of city council are absolutely committed to bringing in small lot developments so that they can grow this city. And so hiring a full-time city planner has been approved. And if you don't believe that when I talk about the grow, I think all one has to do is look at the mayor's message. And here's what he says. We are one of the few cities that can still grow. Stop right there, because that is not true at all. If you look at any of the surrounding cities around us, from Rockwall, Forney, Terrell, Royce City, Fate, Heath, every one of them has lots of room to grow, and they are growing. We have a lot of available land, and our growth will be managed with thoughtful insights from our leadership and citizens. You know, if you're trying to preserve our wide open spaces, then why hire a city planner at all? Why would that be necessary? The answer is it's not necessary. The results from the comprehensive plan study highlight what's most important to citizens. This is something that is going to be released in a few, I think, 2 weeks. You see this? The top strengths. Note what's not highlighted. This is from the presentation by the city administrator. Notice what she does not highlight. She doesn't highlight the open spaces, low density, and large lot residential. Oh, and by the way, what was even higher than the public safety portion was the low tax rate. Surprised? That's not on there. That's not anywhere on there. We don't want to talk about that because that's a distraction. Now, look at the top weaknesses. Infrastructure. But that's also an opportunity. Do you see that? Infrastructure. This is the linchpin to big government growth. And this is the plan all along. Now here is the city administrator's argument as to why we need a city planner. And what is the one operative word that we need to keep watching out for? What is that word? It's need, necessity, right? Well, she wouldn't do that. Well, of course. Watch this. We need a dynamic planning process. We what? We need a dynamic planning process. Why? What does that even mean? But we need it. We need a planner focused solely on McLendon Chisholm. Why? We need a planner to implement the new comprehensive plan and guide us through this ever-changing landscape. Why? She doesn't explain why, but we need it. We need a planner to meet with potential developers with a clear understanding of the vision of the city of McLendon Chisholm. Gee, I thought that was the job of the mayor. Well, it was when I was mayor. That was my job. It's we don't have a mayor who actually keeps office hours. We don't have a mayor who is engaged or involved. You see, and therein lies the problem. We'll just hand it off to a government employee. But don't worry, folks. This necessary new position will be responsible to implement and create new laws. That's what ordinance development is. Technical planning and zoning assistance to the public and staff. Now, who exactly are we talking about here? Public and staff? The public? They're talking about developers. Hold tight, because you got to understand this person's going to review plans and plots that are presented. They're going to process all the applications, plans, variances, you name it. Folks, mark my words, in 2 years, this city planner, this full-time city planner, is going to need an assistant to help with the mountain of paperwork that they are creating. You know, I said earlier that government doesn't create anything. Well, they actually do. They create paperwork. They create bureaucracy, and we will be swimming in paperwork. And that city planner is going to need a city help, a secretary. They're going to need help. And so and of course, provide assistance to our planning and zoning and Board of Adjustment, and of course the City Council. Now, isn't it interesting that the City Council isn't listed first? That's not a mistake. That's intentional, because the City Council of McLendon Chisholm is nothing more than a rubber stamp. So that's the thing. The bottom line, why do you need a city planner? Because city planners, they go out and they find businesses and they find developers. They find developers who are going to develop McLendon Chisholm. The comprehensive plan that is being worked on right now by a company, we're spending almost $100,000 on this comprehensive plan, is designed specifically to ignore the voice of the citizens of McLendon Chisholm. Let me say that again. This comprehensive plan is designed specifically to ignore the voice of the citizens of McLendon Chisholm. Did you know that the voice of those who live outside of our city is as valuable, if not more, than those who live inside our city? Just look at the city survey, for instance, that citizens were invited to participate in. Did you know that those who live outside of our city participated in it too? Unlike the surveys that I created when I was on city council and mayor, where only citizens could participate and only citizens' voices were heard. No, this is an opportunity for the city council to basically ramrod. Well, I'm saying city council, some members of city council and the mayor for sure, to ramrod big government development. They want small lot sizes. They want big developments. And folks, they're gonna lower the minimum lot size to 1 acre from 1.5 acres, but it's irrelevant because they don't care what the lot size standard is. Lorna Kippett and Trudy Wessner, the only two members of the city council who were present, were able to approve a development in the city of McLendon Chisholm for lots less than 1 acre. It didn't matter the fact that we have an ordinance for 1.5 acre minimum per home site. How do you think we got Sonoma Verde? How do you think Triple Creek was approved? It's because it doesn't matter. The comprehensive plan doesn't matter a lick. And I'll tell you this, your mayor and members of city council don't care about preserving our wide open spaces. They say they do, but remember what my grandmother says, show me. Show me. If judge them by their actions, not their words. And that's the fundamental problem with what's happening here in McLendon Chisholm. So this is back to the presentation again. So you have been able to identify, or actually the question that I have for you is, have you been able to identify any of the funding gaps that make it necessary to increase your taxes? Have you found any future requirements necessary to increase your taxes either? Personnel costs are increasing. This is what she writes. Now, see, the public sector is like that person who loses their job and instead of cutting back on expenses, decides to go and buy a boat. Why are personnel costs, why are they expanding? Why are they getting higher? Because you're hiring more people. There's part of the problem. This is the big government mindset as the best way to cure economic uncertainty is to hire more bureaucrats. Look at this proposed addition to staff personnel aims to, watch this, provide improved services to citizens and improve long-range planning efforts. Improved services to citizens? Now, I could not help myself. You've got to hear Ronald Reagan on this one.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
That's right. And that's what this new budget is going to do. It's going to help. If you're not scared, if you're not frightened, you should be, because that is what is being presented here. We're going to help. Road infrastructure costs have increased. How is this possible? Folks, you understand the city of McLendon Chisholm has 3 miles of road tops. That the roads and streets that are in Sonoma Verde, those belong to the citizens who live inside Sonoma Verde, and that is all funded by a PID. It has been brought to my attention that the city council has decided to repair a road that is not truly inside the city limits of McLendon Chisholm because of one homeowner who has been barking loudly and saying that somehow a school bus cannot get in there to pick up their children, and it's unsafe. Government is not in the role of helping individuals. The role of government is to do the most good for the most people at the least cost. When government tries to help an individual, government is run amok. And I had requested some verification on this information, and so far no one has said that what I'm saying is not true. But one thing that one of the members of council did say is, well, children's safety is very important. And I've got to just tell you how out of place that comment is. If anyone ever thought that that's not important to me, that's ridiculous. But it is not the role of government to take care of an individual family. It is the role of government to act as fiduciaries on behalf of the people. It's the same. I don't care what level of government. I'm the president of my HOA here in Quail Creek. And if one homeowner wants something that's going to give them something that no one else is going to get, and he wants the homeowners association to pay for it, and since, I don't know, we on the homeowners association board want to help him and like him or whatever, if we were to do that, we would violate our fiduciary obligation to all homeowners. If we can't do it as a homeowners association, why on earth should a city be able to do that? And folks, those of you who live in Sonoma Verde should be climbing the walls right now, knowing that you have to pay your PID. And if there's not enough funds in that utility fund to repair a street, then you're going to get another bill in the next tax season, and it could be for hundreds, even thousands of dollars, and you don't get the benefit like this homeowner does. So this is one area where I think the city council needs to explain to the citizen what on earth they're talking about here, that the cost of roads has gone up, has increased. By the way, when I was mayor, we made a major repair to Klutz Road. So that was one of our roads. I think we have 3 or 4 roads. But again, not the responsibility of the city to take care of an individual just because the members of city council want to be generous. This is the problem with government in people who are in public office. They want to be generous with my money. And what I want to say to them is, if you want to be generous, great. You give the money. And if you want me to give the money, then come knock on my door and say, hey, we've got this family over here. They need help. Would you like to contribute? Sure. You know what? I probably would contribute to that. But the fact that I have no say in that the government thinks it's okay to do that is absolutely wrong. All right, I've gone on a tangent, but savings, here's the other one, and this is most important. Savings or fund balance, replenishment. This, folks, all right, is crucial to long-term requirements, roads, community service, public safety. You see what they're saying here? They know how to spend your money better than you do. So we're going to ask that you give us your money. We know how to spend it. You don't. You don't know how to spend it. We're going to take care of it for you. Welcome to an Orwellian state. Why on earth are they accumulating so much money? Why did they create this? Folks, the answer is actually pretty simple. And the lesson, as Sir Edmund Burke says, those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. Well, I'm going to give you a little history lesson about Rockwall County. And it has to do with this building back here. That is the Rockwall County Courthouse, this beautiful monstrosity. And by the way, if you don't know, this courthouse is actually running out of room. You see, this courthouse went before voters and to build, and voters rejected it handily. So then they put it back on the ballot and asked voters again. They changed some things. They asked voters again. And voters turned it down handily. So how did it get built? Because the county commissioners had enough money saved up to build it anyway. What's happening here? What's happening is the city of McLendon Chisholm is storing money up so that the mayor who has never held a private sector job in his life, who's never signed the front of a paycheck, he's always worked in the public sector, has a big government mindset. The mayor wants to bring in bigger developments in here so that we can have more people, so that there becomes the need. Here we go again, the word need. We need a city police department. That's why the fire department building is not called the fire department building. It's called the public safety building. There are already stupid individuals. And I got to tell you, if you are someone who thinks the city of McLendon Chisholm needs its own, then you are absolutely stupid. I absolutely have no patience for people like you, because apparently you think we need something like that. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because we're a population of 3,000 people. Did you know that the sheriff's department, we have a sheriff's department, we have a law enforcement agency that serves us very well. And if we ever have a need for officers to be dedicated to the city of McLendon Chisholm, well, our city, all we have to do is contract with the sheriff's department. Royce City used to do that. And we can have as many officers as we want. Now, what's the benefit of that? Well, the benefit is multiple. I mean, it's significant. The benefit is we don't have all the administrative costs. We don't have all of the other costs associated with it. Folks, if you think right now, we've got a $3 million budget. If we bring in a police department, we will double that budget. We will double that budget, and the reason I can say that with integrity is because Scott Turnbull did a study on it and determined that it would be a terrible, terrible financial decision for the city. It won't make us safer because, and I know that there are certain people who find this offensive, but police do not prevent crime. They don't. That's why they're called law enforcement. They enforce the law when a crime has been committed. Have you ever seen somebody who you know is a crook, or they're going to do something? What do the police say? Well, we have to see them do it. We have to see them in action. Creating a police department will do nothing but create a drain on our economy right here in McLendon Chisholm. But this is what's happening, and this is why the mayor and some others and some in our community want a police department, a dedicated police department. It's insane. Now, back to the presentation, she writes, due to increased home values and new property added to the tax roll, the city will move forward with planned initiatives. Now watch this. Whenever someone in government uses the word initiative, it always means spending program. Okay? All initiatives that are, what does she write? Necessary to ensure the continued health, safety, and welfare of MC residents, to prepare for economic uncertainties, and to continue responsible fiscal planning for capital projects and avoidance of future debt for capital replacement. Now remember, everything budgeted will move forward regardless. That's not included in the presentation, by the way. But in her presentation, she made note of that. And I'm going to show you that even no matter what, even if there were a tax rollback was put on the May ballot, even if that passed, it would have no impact on the budget as far as expenses go. They can spend everything they want to in the budget. Why? Because that the added tax dollars that they're getting is just to add to their float. That's an important point, don't you think? I think that it won't matter. Fund balance will be reduced. Here's where it's deceitful. Fund balance will be reduced from $492,152 to $155,545. So understand that fund balance equals budget surplus. I added that to this. Remember, the building permit income is projected to be $808,000. Should there be a downturn in the economy or something else slows or stops permits, those funds must be made up from the fund balance. Now, look at this. This is another, I want you to see the next slide. In this, notice here the word at the bottom. See the $492,152. Notice the word replenishment of fund balance. what does the word replenish mean? Replenish means to replace, that something was there and it needs to be replaced. But that is not what is happening. So you're a member of city council, you're listening to the presentation. What are you thinking? You're thinking that $492,152 has been taken out of our budget that we need to put back. But that's not what this means. It means surplus. And when she uses the word replenishment, what she means is we want to have another surplus this year, just like we did last year. That's what's meant here. So let's just run the numbers and see for ourselves what that would look like. The empirically based consequences of a tax rollback, if that happened, based on the approved budget. Because after all, she's saying, if you have a tax rollback, this would be what's happened. The projected revenue would decrease from $2.4 to $2.4 million. The expenditures, obviously, they don't change. But the fund balance, what we conservatives call a surplus for the year, goes down to $164,800. So we end the fiscal year with just shy of a $3.2 million surplus. This means that McLendon Chisholm would still end the fiscal year with a 17-month and not an almost 19-month surplus that they had budgeted through their next tax increase. Now, this is important because we've still got a surplus, but here's the more important consequences. Actually, I'm going to call them benefits. I don't know. The tax rate would drop from 18.5 cents to 13 cents, roughly. Senior citizens get to lock in that new tax rate. Now, folks, the reason we have a senior tax cap, you can thank me, because it was the first thing I presented as an elected member of the city council. It was the first item that I presented. After years of the city council turning it down, that was something important to me, because I believe that raising taxes don't help the economy. They sure as hell don't help senior citizens. But more important, it has no impact to the city's bloated budget. Now, I realize that, when people got wind that I was doing a show on the budget, I got a call I got contacted by Val Bodart, who's a former candidate running for mayor, and she ran for city council, and the voters rejected her. I think they're scratching their head and wishing they hadn't, because she and Paul Day, another candidate that was rejected by voters, they are actually organizing a petition drive to put a tax rollback on the May ballot. You have to have so many signatures, and I think that they're already starting work on this. And so if you want to help them, if you want to get in contact with them, this is where you go. You just email mcrollback@gmail.com if you want to sign it, or if you want to help get your neighborhood to sign up. But I got to tell you, I know this surprises a lot of people, but I don't think that's the right step necessarily to go yet. And the reason I say this is because as citizens, there is still time. This is the beginning of September. The budgets do not have to be finalized until the end of September. And so I did some checking. The question that I asked is, can a city council reconsider an approved budget and rescind a tax rate increase if it's done before September 30th? And the response was yes. However, they still have to have a public hearing, and you're in a time crunch. What's interesting is we've got to remember that what happened just a few days ago. In July 28th, from July 28th to August 16th, in 19 days, the city council was able to pass their budget. I think the better option for us is for the city council, is for citizens to start contacting your member of city council and telling them, hey, reconsider the budget. All you have to do, and any member of city council, and the reason I know this is because when I was mayor, I ensured that this ordinance was in place. It already has statutory, it has standing in a court of law, so we actually codified it through an ordinance that any member of city council can request an item to be placed on the agenda. The mayor cannot refuse any item to be placed on the agenda. So between now and I believe it's next Tuesday, because the next city council meeting is the 14th, and to get the public notice, I think it's got to be in on Tuesday. So between now and next Tuesday, citizens need to be contacting a member of city council and letting them know, put a reconsideration on the next agenda. Reconsider a discussion and possible action to reconsider the budget and tax rate increase. So what they would do is they would have that on the agenda. That item goes before the council. As long as it is seconded by anyone, then there can be discussion. And all a member of council has to do is say, look, I don't think we had enough time to really look at this budget. And I don't think the citizens had enough time to actually look at it either and give us their feedback. What I would like to do, I'm calling for a new public hearing that in 10 days, 10 or 12 days, and have a meeting so that we can have a public hearing and reconsider the budget where cuts need to be made, and a meeting to reconsider the tax rate increase. At that meeting, you can have the public hearing, and a motion can be made to approve a new amended budget and rescind the tax rate increase. You then hold a special meeting or wait until the next regular meeting at the end of the month, I think it's the 28th, and vote on the new budget, on approving the new budget. It's that easy. It's that simple. They've done it before. They did it to get us where we are now. The question is, do they have the resolve? Is there anyone on the city council? Is there any member of city council that has the will, the heart to stand against Keith Short, the mayor, and other members of city council? And what the bigger question is, what would be wrong with that? I think before we go with a tax rollback or putting a petition together, I think that the city council should be given the chance to reconsider. Look, we've all made poor decisions. We've all made bad decisions. I've done it. And I'll tell you this, one thing I can promise you, and I'm going to make this as clear as I can. The one thing I will say, if this city council reconsiders the budget and creates a balanced budget and gets rid of these two full-time employees that are absolutely unnecessary, and if this council rescinds the tax rate increase, then not only will I praise them mightily on this show, but I will also endorse their campaigns for re-election. I don't care who they are, because they're doing the right thing. But the question is, do we have three members of city council who are willing to do the right thing? Do we actually have three members of city council that are actual conservatives? I'm not so sure, but I guess time will tell. So that is what we have to look forward to, and I hope that we'll see some action in the next few days. So don't forget, by the way, I do want to highlight the fact that I didn't go through the entire budget. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of problems with it, and I'm going to have the Doctor of Finance, Scott Turnbull, on my show next week to kind of go through more of the details of the budget and highlight areas that really can be cut and should be cut. So, and hopefully, the City Council will consider some of the arguments and points that Scott makes. So don't forget to come back for the show on then. I believe on the 14th of September, Councilman Pat Fallon will be here in studio to answer questions. and have a little straight talk. And yes, if you have questions for the congressman, please send them in. If you have questions about the budget or for Scott Turnbull or me, just email me at bob@bunkerbob.com. So I hope that we will see you next time. Thank you for joining me today, and you have a blessed day.